Well, hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video. Today, I'm going to be discussing as well as showcasing the ultimate best class setup for the M4A1 carbine here in Call of Duty Warzone. So of course guys, welcome back to another Warzone best class setup video here in Season 2. Of course for this one, we are going to be tackling the M4A1 assault rifle, which let me just say, the M4A1 has always been a very consistent assault rifle in this game, and it really didn't matter which season it was or what meta was popular at the time. The M4A1 was always a very good assault rifle and a very powerful assault rifle to use. And interestingly enough, one reason why I like using the M4A1 is I actually was using this weapon when I got my first ever solo win in Warzone back in March of 2020. So that said, what I want to do in today's video is showcase the absolute best class setup to use here in Season 2, so that way you can absolutely dominate. Now, that said, if you guys go on to enjoy today's video, make sure you leave the like comment down below, as all likes are very much appreciated. Also, make sure to subscribe and turn on post notifications so that way you guys will not miss any of the latest and greatest Call of Duty news, class setups, and all kinds of things like that. Of course, we are on the road to 4,000 subscribers, so all subscriptions are very much appreciated. So once again, now that I got the intro out of the way, let's dive right into it. Alright, so first and foremost, before I go into the class setup and talk about the attachments and perks and everything that I am going to be running, I do quickly want to talk a little bit about the M4A1. So of course, the M4A1 is a very versatile assault rifle, being that has a relatively high fire rate, as well as the damage is very solid, and if you put on the right attachments like the ones that I'm showcasing in today's video, the recoil can be extremely low. So that means in most circumstances, you can use this weapon effectively at all ranges. That's one thing that I really like about the M4A1, and that's it's kind of the jack of all trades assault rifle. Interestingly enough, since the rate of fire of this weapon is pretty high, it means that you can use it effectively at close range. And additionally, since the damage on the weapon is pretty good, you can also use it very effectively at medium range, and if you actually put a scope on it, you can start sniping people at those longer range engagements. Now, I will admit that the damage really starts to drop off, so that means you are going to be getting quite a few hit markers. However, of course, back to what I originally said, since the recoil on this weapon is extremely low, it means that even though you might have to land a lot of shots, it isn't necessarily going to be that hard to do so, if you understand what I mean. And yeah, because of all those reasons, that's why the M4A1 has always been a very consistent assault rifle in Warzone, and it didn't matter what the meta was, whether it be the Grom meta, or the Bruin meta, or the MAC-10 DMR meta, the M4A1 has always been a consistent and viable assault rifle, and that remains true here in Season 2 of Warzone. Now that said, without further ado, let's actually talk a little bit about the class setup, which is of course on your screen right now. Breaking it down a little bit, of course, for my primary weapon, I will be using the M4A1 carbine, and more specifically, I'll be using the Task Force blueprint. Now, if you guys don't have this particular blueprint, it's really not a big deal. You can just use the standard variation. The only reason why I'm using it is because it slightly changes the iron sights, so they're a little bit easier to use. However, other than that, everything else about the blueprint is simply cosmetic. Moving on down, let's talk a little bit about the attachments I am going to be running on this weapon. For my first attachment, I will be using the monolithic suppressor, which will be increasing the sound suppression as well as damage range. And of course, for our second attachment, we are going to be using the stock M16 Grenadier barrel, which will of course be increasing the damage range, bullet velocity, as well as recoil control. And overall, this barrel is really useful because of course it's going to be increasing the damage range and bullet velocity, so that means your shots are going to be in turn hitting a lot more consistently, and they also are going to be doing more damage. And in addition to that, this barrel is also going to be increasing the recoil control, so that way the weapon won't kick up as much, meaning that you can get more consistent kills at those medium to longer range engagements. Of course, the only downside is your aim down sight speed as well as movement speed. However, I am going to be remedying that with a couple of my other attachments I will be running. With that said, for our next attachment, I will be using the Commando foregrip, which will be increasing the recoil stabilization as well as aiming stability. And of course, for our next attachment, we are going to be using the 60 round magazine. Now, of course, on the M4A1, the default magazine size is 30 rounds. However, personally, I like to increase the magazine size to either 50 rounds or 60 rounds, and that's just because, quite frankly, the M4A1 has a pretty fast fire rate, so that means you're going to be burning through that ammunition. And like what I mentioned in my last video talking about the Hilo 141, one thing that I really like about the 60 round magazine is you know for a fact that you can take out at least 3 people or 2 people and also finish them without having to reload, which is extremely useful because the last thing that you want is to get into an engagement, you take down one person, you finish him, and then you go on to shoot the second person and you run out of ammunition and you have to reload mid-gun fight and you get absolutely destroyed. So that said, that's how come I am going to be using the 60 round magazine. Now alternatively, if you guys would like to, you could swap it out for the 50 round magazine, which I will admit, if you want to use the 50 round magazine, it is going to be increasing your aim down sight speed as well as movement speed as compared to the 60 round magazine. However, that calls on you. It really just comes down to your own personal preference. And of course, for our final attachment, we are going to be using the stippled grip tape, which will be increasing the aim down sight speed as well as sprint to fire speed. Now, the reason why I'm going to be using this attachment, and that's just because a lot of the other attachments that I'm running on this class setup, for example, the 60 round magazine, the grenadier barrel, or the monolithic suppressor, are going to be severely hampering your aim down sight speed. However, if you put on the stippled grip tape, it's going to be counteracting that, so that way with that combination, you'll still be putting out a lot of damage overall, and especially at those medium to longer range engagements. However, with the stippled grip tape, you are going to be doing that, but you're also going to be able to get your iron sights up a lot quicker. So that means if you are in those CQB close range engagements, you can still get your iron sights up and take out that person very effectively. And alright guys, those are of course going to be all the attachments I will be running on my M4A1 carbine for this particular class setup. Now, for my secondary weapon, you really have two different options. You can either run the HDR sniper rifle or the KAR98K marksman rifle, and it really just comes down to your own personal preference on which one you want to use. Starting off with the HDR, some of the benefits of it, and that is the bullet velocity as well as damage is extremely good. So that means if you really want to stay back and snipe and try to get those like 200, 300 meter snipes, then you might want to use the HDR sniper rifle. However, the HDR is a pretty slow sniper rifle overall, so that means you're not going to be getting your scope up very quickly, so that means you might want to run the KAR98K, which is a lot quicker, a lot snappier. However, it doesn't have the same bullet velocity as well as damage, so it really just comes down to your own personal preference. And in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down both a class setup for the HDR sniper rifle as well as the KAR98K. Starting off for my HDR, of course, my first attachment, I will be using the monolithic suppressor. Second attachment is going to be the 26.9 inch HDR Pro barrel, which will be increasing the damage range, bullet velocity, as well as recoil control. For our next attachment, we will be using the tac laser, which will be increasing the aim down sight speed, aiming stability, as well as aim walking steadiness. And let me just say, if you are going to be using the HDR, the tac laser is one of the most important attachments to run on it, because of course on the HDR you cannot run stippled grip tape, so that means the tac laser is really the only attachment that you can run to significantly increase your aim down sight speed. Moving on down, for our next attachment, we will be using the variable zoom scope, and of course for our final attachment, we will be using the 9-round magazine. So that's the class setup for the HDR sniper rifle. However, alternatively, if you guys would like to run the KAR98K, the attachments that I would recommend would be the monolithic suppressor, the SynGuard custom 27.6 inch barrel, the tac laser, the variable zoom scope, as well as the stippled grip tape. Alright, so that's essentially it for all the attachments I am going to be running on the weapons for my class setup. So now let's head back and talk a little bit about the perks as well as equipment that I am going to be running. Naturally, my perk setup is going to be EOD overkill and battle hardened. Lethal is going to be the Semtex grenade, as well as my tactical is going to be the heartbeat sensor. And of course, like most class setups in Warzone, if you really want to excel, you want to get your first loadout, so that way you can pick this class setup. However, a little bit later in the game, when you get the chance to get another loadout, then you will most definitely want to run Ghost. So yeah guys, with that said, that's going to effectively wrap up today's video. I hope you went on to enjoy it, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like on down below, as well as subscribe and turn post notifications, so that way you guys will not miss any of the latest and greatest Call of Duty news, class setups, and all kinds of things like that. So once again, that's going to effectively wrap up today's video. I've been your host, Stever Jungle. I hope to see you in the next one.